This is Scott Nelson, who is facing first-degree murder charges after killing a nanny in Orlando, Florida.
So you committed the worst possible crime.
Nelson was recently released from a 25-year prison sentence for a bank robbery. After he was let go from his painting job, he decided to plan another robbery. Nelson broke into a house with a knife where a nanny was working as a caregiver. He kidnapped her, threw her in the trunk, and drove to a local ATM so he could withdraw cash. Nelson then drove to a remote location and stabbed her to death, before ditching her body and the car, where he was later arrested. On trial, Nelson argued that the government was to blame.
You bought zip ties.
Yes, I did.
You bought duct tape.
That'd be correct.
You bought a knife.
I sure did. I bought that material because I had a plan in mind of how I was going to survive being thrown on the street again for what, the third or was it the fourth time by the government? And you know, you kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back, and really, they just don't care anymore.
Nelson continues testifying, showing no emotion, and finally admits to the murder.
Somebody was going to pay for how you've been treated.
That is very accurate.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did.
He took the stand during the penalty phase, and this is what he had to say.
How has your mental health been affected by your previous incarceration?
I am a homicidal maniac.
In the end, Nelson was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Walmart employees. In South Haven, Mississippi, Abram had worked at the Walmart but was faced with a suspension after he apparently had a knife on him in the store. The day he was suspended, he returned to the store with multiple weapons and opened fire, killing store managers Anthony Brown and Brandon Gales.
He was laying on the ground with his eyes open, and I ran up to him and I looked at him. I said, Anthony, honey, please say KC one more time.
He also shot an officer who survived due to his bulletproof vest.
Once I got out of my vehicle, I heard gunshots and I felt the pressure of the bullet hit my back.
He was arrested on site. Now in court, Abram admits to all crimes.
That's you, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
Look at it, please, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Gale is on the floor going down at this point, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay, and that's you shooting him, right?
Yes.
Look at the screen, sir.
Yes.
That's you shooting him?
Yes.
Can you admit that you shot him in cold blood?
Yes.
You shot him again, didn't you?
Yes.
After that, you went back to the toilet paper aisle, didn't you?
Yes.
This is one of the victim's wife delivering a victim impact statement.
You took Anthony from me on the exact day 20 years earlier that we had our first date.
And now this is when the judge will decide Abram's fate.
In count 1, I will sentence you to death. Count 2, you will be sentenced to death. In count 3, you will be sentenced to life in the penitentiary.
As Abram hears that he will be receiving the death penalty, he stands silently, where he now sits on death row awaiting his execution. This is Erica Butts and Shanita Cunningham. They were both charged with homicide by child abuse in Summerville, South Carolina. Butts, who was best friends with the child's mother, was supposed to be caring for the toddler for 2 weeks. The child was only 3 years old. She died from her injuries, reflecting weeks of torture, a time frame that matched the time she had spent with Butts and her lover at the time, Cunningham.
What must have been the excruciating sounds that came from that child is more than disconcerting to this court.
After both women were found guilty, the judge now hands down their sentence.
The court finds it appropriate that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life.
They were just sentenced to life in prison. Butts and Cunningham are reportedly at separate prisons serving their life sentences. friend. Now he's on trial for the second. Webb showed up to court with a tattoo on his head that listed people he wanted to kill. At the bottom was 3 rats crossed out. During the trial, Webb showed no remorse and the jury found him guilty. The judge sentenced Webb to life in prison for his crimes. This is Camia Gamet, who is charged with the murder of her boyfriend in Jackson, Mississippi. Reportedly, the attack happened during an argument between the two individuals and ended with the boyfriend being violently stabbed to death. Gamet was arrested on first-degree murder charges. In court, Gamet would claim her murder was in self-defense and her boyfriend was attacking her. But in the end, she was found guilty of murder.
The way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off lies.
We now move into the sentencing, where Gamet reportedly kept interrupting the judge.
You're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it.
With Gamet showing no remorse, the judge had some final words.
You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
In the end, Gamet was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This is Kyandria Cook, who was found guilty of carjacking charges in Volusia County, Florida. 18-year-old Cook and her then 17-year-old boyfriend had used a dating app to set up a carjacking, where the boyfriend reportedly shot the victim, leaving him seriously injured. After fleeing the scene and being on the run, the pair attempted another carjacking just 2 days later, but they were arrested. Now in court, Cook stands in front of the judge for her involvement in the theft and shooting.
Keeps you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
That is Cook's mother that can be heard crying. Reportedly, the reason for this very emotional outburst is there was a miscommunication with the assistant public defender, where Cook and her mother thought she wouldn't face any prison time. Cook's sentence was later reduced to 11 years in prison. This is Joel Delgado. He's currently being brought to the Pulaski County Courthouse in Little Rock, Arkansas. He's brought into court to face multiple charges, including residential burglary and theft of services. Reportedly, during his arrest, he claimed he was injured, so he was brought to a hospital. Now, the sheriff deputy is currently escorting Delgado into the courthouse to face his charges. But steps before they enter the door, Delgado loses his shoe, which just might be a distraction for his getaway plan.
What'd you say, OJ? Hey, you see a shoe back there? Where is it?
With Delgado being in a neck brace and a wheelchair, it appears he can't walk, but he sure can run. Delgado then bolts across the street and down an alley.
Oh, I'm gonna catch you, baby. I'm gonna shoot your.
The deputy seems to lose him and searches through the streets looking for the suspect.
Hey, can you call the police for me? Call the police for me. Call the police. What way it go?
Went straight through the alley and cut that way. What you
Your
need?
phone. My damn radio came up.
And I tried to get him.
Hello. The wheelchair dude got up and ran. Yeah. I couldn't catch his. The wheelchair dude. I couldn't catch him here.
After no luck, the deputy makes it back to the front of the courthouse.
The wheelchair dude ran. He had a neck brace on and all that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Didn't need that wheelchair very much, did he?
Hell no.
The deputy then meets up with his colleagues and breaks the news.
Dude ran, man. Dude ran? Hell yeah. What? He took off? Yeah, I couldn't catch that dude. He jumped the rail. It's on my camera, bro. Oh, what's that, man? He jumped the rail, kicked his shoe had came off. I been down to get his shoe. He just ran. Took off on you, man. Yeah. Should have had cuffed him to the wheelchair.
However, the suspect's freedom was short-lived as he was caught a few hours later, where he claimed he was injured and couldn't walk again. And now he faces an additional charge of third-degree escape. Reportedly, Delgado has pleaded not guilty to all charges against him. This is Ronnie O'Neill. He is a double murder suspect in Riverview, Florida.
If you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
O'Neill was 29 when he fatally shot his then-girlfriend Kenyatta Barron. Following this, he murdered their own daughter by striking her multiple times with a hatchet. She was only 9 years old. O'Neill also stabbed their 8-year-old son before pouring gasoline all over the house and setting it on fire. O'Neill was arrested upon fleeing the burning house. The son was able to escape but was critically wounded and suffered from burns. The first 911 call on the incident was from the girlfriend who was heard screaming before suddenly hanging up. 8 minutes later, another call came in from O'Neill.
911, what is your emergency? Hey, I just been attacked by some white demons inside Kiki. Kiki, her name is Kiki, and she tried to kill me. What she had? Huh?
After the arrest, O'Neill was psychologically cleared to represent himself in court. During the trial, he cross-examined his now 11-year-old son, who he stabbed, to which the son explained everything that happened.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
You stabbed me.
O'Neill also accused the prosecution of fabricating evidence.
Because he's playing a fraudulent damn recording of me beating Kenyatta Barron. I did kill Kenyatta Barron.
After O'Neill was found guilty at his sentencing, the judge went on to say this was the worst case she's ever seen.
This is the worst case ever in my life, and I have seen some horrors.
He also stated that he was not sorry for what he did.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
O'Neill was given a total of 3 life sentences plus 90 years without parole. And for O'Neill's son, he was adopted by the detective who cared for him the night of the murders. This is Esteban Carpio. The police were questioning him for the stabbing of an 85-year-old woman in Rhode Island. In the interview room was Carpio and 2 detectives. One of the detectives left the room to get water for Carpio, leaving just him and Detective Sergeant James Allen in the room. Carpio grabbed Allen's gun and then shot him twice, killing him. He then jumped out of a window which was 3 stories high and made a run for it, but was apprehended just 45 minutes later. At his arraignment, Carpio came in wearing a mask designed to stop the offender from spitting and biting at others. With also his face being in rough shape, it stunned the courtroom. It wasn't so much Carpio with the shocking reaction, more so his family members, making accusations of police brutality.
Step off. Not guilty. I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty, Stephen.
It's police brutality. He was mentally ill and he needed help and we couldn't get it. We tried and tried. And he didn't deserve this.
An FBI investigation concluded that the police did not use excessive force and that Carpio's injuries were sustained due to his jump from the 3rd floor of a building and struggle with law enforcement.
Every day I face the facts of what I did and what happened.
He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. This is Jessica Groves, who along with her husband, Daniel Groves, are both charged with the murder of their own 2-month-old child in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Tell the jury how you killed this baby.
It was an accident.
Not your excuse. How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
Reportedly, when the father found the child unresponsive, he later testified he didn't alert authorities because his wife threatened to blame him. That's when the child's body was found at the bottom of a 30-foot well inside a milk crate, wrapped in plastic. Reports found that the child suffered fractures to his skull, arms, ribs, and leg. The mother and father had initially pleaded not guilty, but in a shocking twist, Miss Groves takes full responsibility for the killing of the child.
Jessica, did you and you only cause the death of your son, Dylan Groves?
Yes.
Did Daniel Groves participate in the killing of Dylan?
No.
Was Daniel Groves aware of any of the injuries that you caused that may have led to his death?
No.
Did you hide all injuries that you caused Dylan from your husband?
Yes.
Prosecutors initially claimed they were both responsible for the child's death, and now they demand the truth.
How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
I have sit here and admitted.
Answer the question, please. How did you cause these injuries?
It was an accident.
Not your excuse for what happened. How did you cause these injuries?
By dropping him.
How did you cause that first 2-inch skull fracture?
I don't remember. I've admitted to my guilt.
How did you
And I have to live without my children. I'm done talking to you.
You are talking to me because you're sitting on the witness stand. Tell them how you caused that injury.
Miss Groves is unable to remember how the child was killed, but she claimed she is the sole reason for the child's murder and acted alone.
My client, Jessica Groves, was and still is a drug addict. There is no doubt about that fact. She, and she alone, caused the injuries to Dylan Groves, which led to his death. She murdered Dylan Groves.
Groves was found guilty on all 11 counts and was given life in prison with no possibility of parole. Her husband was cleared of aggravated murder, but he was found guilty on the remaining 10 charges and was sentenced to 47 years to life in prison. This is Kimberly Long, who was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for a murder she never committed in Riverside, California. Long arrived home and discovered her boyfriend dead. She immediately called 911. Despite being the person who found the dead body, Long ended up becoming the lead suspect. She was soon convicted of second-degree murder and sent to prison. But 7 years later, forensic evidence showed that her boyfriend died long before she had arrived at the scene, and there was DNA of an unknown male at the crime scene. The conviction now gets overturned.
The judgment of conviction is vacated and a new trial will be ordered.
Long is now outside of prison. The prosecution soon dropped all existing charges.
I feel happy, elated, relieved, just a lot of emotions right now.
Long reportedly received $386,000 from the California Victim Compensation Fund. This is Anthony Kirkland, who is a convicted serial killer in Cincinnati, Ohio.
They say I am evil and a monster. They're right. Even my mom hated me, but I don't blame her.
Kirkland had previously served a 16-year prison sentence for the killing of his ex-girlfriend. A few years after his release, Kirkland begun his killing spree. Over a 3-year period, he killed 4 women, 2 of them being teenagers. Kirkland was arrested after his 4th murder, as he was caught with one of the victim's watch and iPod, which made him a lead suspect. Eventually, police were able to pin all the murders to Kirkland. Now in court, as the charges are being read out, Kirkland is facing the death penalty, and next, he appears to faint.
Count 4, aggravated murder.
Kirkland was later found guilty on all charges and sentenced to death. He is currently on death row awaiting his execution at the Chillicothe Correctional Facility.